Oh, that's what he's been trying to do the whole time. I didn't realize he could do that. If he times his Q at the right time, like right as I cast E, then it still stuns me. That's one trick knowledge for you.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Swaggins here. Today we'll be covering another matchup guide. This will be the infamous Jax matchup. This is one that is very much a struggle and is one of Volibear's hardest counters, so this video will be going over how to play the matchup as best as you can, and how to maybe even potentially win the matchup. Alright, so starting off, let's just go over the runes here briefly. Grasp is quite good into Jax because you will mostly be doing brief trades with him at most times, although you can take PTA into this matchup. It is not necessarily bad. I personally prefer Grasp because it allows you to the full capacity of the Resolve tree, which makes you very tanky and makes you a lot more durable. And then I like to take Inspiration as my second to take Biscuits as well to make me even more durable. We will go into this later in the items, but the TLDR is that Jax has low % health damage, so building raw HP is very good against him. Alright, next we're just going to go over Jax's kit so that we can better understand how to play against him in lane. Unlike some of the other champions I've covered already, Jax actually has relatively short cooldowns on both his Q and his W. Now his E is one of his longer cooldowns, and the most important ability to pay attention to. This ability is what dictates the lane. If the Jax does not know how to use this ability properly, or you know how to abuse this ability properly, then you will have a much easier time in this lane. Now, when Jax uses his combo like this, or he uses his Q, or he uses his E, when his E is on cooldown, as long as you get a proper Volibear EQW combo, you will automatically win that fight. That is just guaranteed. Now, the problem is getting those combos in while his E is on cooldown. Now, this right here is a very common example what will be happening a lot to you in the Jax matchup. He will run at you, click E, and he will walk you down, get about an auto or two on, and then proc his E, and then run away or jump away. Now, it sucks, it's annoying, not much to do about it, but you have to pay attention to what happens afterward. Right here, he's giving me too much room and is taking his time farming, but I have my combo up, so I run at him and make a big combo trade, which actually ends up winning the trade for me overall in the long run. All because he didn't respect the distance we had on each other and he thought he was safer than what he was, even though his E was on cooldown, and that is when Jax is at his most vulnerable. This is another good example here. I let him attack me and I let him get a combo on me and a couple autos off, right? So it's a winning trade for him. But I chill and relax and I just hit the minions, and if he ever walks up slightly here like he does here, right after he doesn't have his E, then I run at him and I get a free combo off, winning the trade for me. It's all about playing in rotations of cooldowns. When his E is on cooldown, that's when you look for a trade. When your E is on cooldown, that's when he's gonna look for a trade. Now, another thing to note, you actually don't need your E all the time to get good winning trades off. Here, he blocks my W and my E, but again, he walks up with his E on cooldown, and I just start walking him down because my bite is better in long extended fights, so therefore I win the extended battle versus him. Again, his E is what dictates the lane, nothing else. Once his E is on cooldown, you win fights. And again, just one more example here. He uses his E, he gets a good trade on me, and then I immediately go after him right after he trades with me. And I full commit on him because I know he doesn't have his E. And it gets so far to the point where I actually force his flash, and actually eventually get a kill here for it. All because I played on that trade pattern. Alright, let's talk about slightly different trading patterns that you might be taking. Sometimes you look to play a little bit more aggressive, and that's fine. And here, I look to play a little bit more aggressive. I went for an EQ combo on him from the bush to maybe catch him off guard, but he reacted to it. In these cases where he does react to your Q, the best bet is to throw the E on top of yourself and run in the opposite direction of where you are from him. So run away, but make sure to maintain to stay inside your E. This will force him to either engage on you fully and tank your E and give you a shield to potentially win the trade afterwards, or he can disengage completely because he doesn't want to get hit by your E. Well, what if the Jax plays safe when his E is on cooldown? Well, this is a good example. He goes in and he does mess up the combo, but regardless if he E'd here earlier or not, when his E officially is on cooldown when he uses it here, he can't walk up for the wave anymore. So I can use this as a way of denying minion. This way, I can gain a CS lead versus a counter matchup. A lot of the times, Jax players will use their E frivolously and aggressively with sometimes no thought. And because of this, you can utilize this to not only deny him minions, but also gather experience leads and gold leads because of it. Now, what I talked about earlier also still applies to the level 1 here. He walks up and plays very aggressive, but as long as you throw your E on top of yourself, you're forcing him to make a decision. Either he stays on top top of you and tanks your E, or he disengages. Now, like I did here, I would recommend that when you chuck the E on top of yourself, also do it on the wave as well, because once Jax's E is gone, you can actually get really good wave prio on top of him, because once his E is down, you have way more wave clear than him, and so you can actually get prio on Jax, despite him being a counter matchup. Now, like I showed earlier, you can do a QE combo onto the Jax, but 90% of the time, the Jax will be paying attention and will react with his Q. Now, the nice thing about Volibear's Q is it's still going to give you movement speed, and when it gives you movement speed, it actually gives you more ability to get away from him while the E is on top of him. So if you notice right here, I place the E on top of him and then Q, and then with the movement speed from the Q, get away from him while my E still hits him. Alright, now let's talk about the magnum opus, as it were, that you saw in the intro of this video. Now, this is incredibly difficult to do, and it definitely will take a lot of practice, but this is one of the most effective ways to get absolutely decimating trades off in lane that will win your lane. This will completely flip the tables in the matchup, and that is buffering your Q and your E through his E stun. Basically, when he walks up to EU, now you're going to place your E on top of yourself like you normally do. But this time, you're going to predict and use your Q and buffer your Q through his E as you place your E. So then you're going to be hitting your Q and your E on top of him, which will be a very good trade for you. If you get this type of buffer off, it basically automatically wins the trade for you every single time. Now, this trade is actually so good because even when you're behind like I am here, it's still a winning trade every single time, because it just guarantees a full combo in the Jax. You can also buffer your W through his E. It's not as good as your EQ combo, but if you happen to mess up your combo like I did in this clip, it's actually still very good to get your W through his E, especially if it's a bite. Even your first mark is still a pretty good trade under his E. Another reason why this buffer combo is just so good is because Jax players simply just do not expect it. Normally when they play versus Volibear players, they're just ready to E on top of you and get as much damage as possible and just get out for free, right? So they never expect this type of damage to come through, and they never expect this to happen, which completely catches them off guard. And because of that, you can usually get a bunch of free kills for it every single time. As I said before, this will take a lot of practice, and it is no easy thing to do. Another thing is this is also just a very high risk, high reward play. It will give you an amazing trade, but also if you Q into him and he blocks it and then does all the damage with his E, then you're going to be losing all your cooldowns and you're going to be taking even more damage. So that's why this is a very high risk, high reward play, but it can usually work out if once you've learned it enough. I will say, once you do it correctly, the Jax players will usually start to activate their E a little earlier because they're expecting that. And in that case, you're just going to have to play mind games with him. You're going to have to try to do it earlier, try to do it later. Then it'll be a little bit more difficult to do it. So that's why when you start out initially doing the combo, you want to save it for a crucial moment where you might be able to actually capitalize and get something out of it. It's also crucial to understand that each Jax player will play different. So sometimes I'd like to test the waters with each Jax player and occasionally walk up with my grasp up and go for a W proc. Sometimes they'll block it, sometimes they won't. It's good to do this every once in a while versus a Jax player to kind of test how they react to your combos and to your abilities. This also conditions them, so they don't know whether to E or W every single time. And so you kind of get a win-win out of this. Either they E your W, and then now you have your Q and E for when their E is on cooldown, or they don't E your W, and you get a free chunk off. Lastly, let's talk about items here. As I talked about earlier in the video with the runes and going grasping, dying, and biscuits is to make you beefy and HP tanky. And the reason this is good is because Jax has little to no % health damage, and he does mixed damage, so sometimes going MR or just armor is not really good enough. So usually raw HP is the best versus him because it also gives you damage on your W while also making you as tanky as possible. If we look at clips like this where he walks up and trades with me, having raw HP is really good here because it just makes you more beefy and you're able to take those E combos from him, those E auto combos, way more and still be able to go back and get a retrade on him. Now, in terms of items, I actually like to go Heartsteel in most of my games, and then I like to follow it up with either Riftmaker, which has good synergy with Heartsteel because you're stacking HP, and then I usually like to go into tank, right? So Visage, Iceborne Gauntlet, right? Those type of items, and then, you know, finish with kind of the normal build that I've talked about on my YouTube channel before. If they have a little bit more % health damage, like they have a Vayne on their team, then I would maybe opt to not do Heartsteel and do something a little bit different. Basically, the TLDR is just build HP. Anything with HP is really good into Jack. So Bloodmail can work. Cosmic Drive is fine, especially if you're ahead. Anything with just HP. Now, the more HP, the better in most situations. But if you're winning the lane pretty hard, then you can opt for more damage like Black Cleaver or Cosmic Drive. But in most cases, I usually like to just go Heartsteel in almost all my Jax games. And it really helps the laning phase because just you're so much more beefy and you can just deal with those bad trades and be able to get better trades because of it more often. In summary, this is a very bad matchup for Volibear. Jax is one of the hardest counter matchups against Volibear in the top lane, but that doesn't mean that the lane is impossible. With the tips of this video, I hope that I can help you in understanding that even though this matchup is very difficult, you can still get very good trades off in various ways versus this matchup, especially when a Jax is less experienced and is not an OTP. I appreciate you guys watching though. I hope I helped you guys out at least in some way, and I will be working on other guides in the future on more matchups as well. I may do Darius next, I'm not sure. Please leave a comment below of what you would actually like to see next, and please like and please subscribe. This took me a while to make, and I appreciate you guys, and I will see you guys later.